Oh, we're going live. We're going live. You look beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I got some rest and I feel good.
Yes, yes.
How are
Okay.
you?
Well, everyone. Hello, nation. Welcome to Wake the Nation with tonight. You know, she wears many hats, my co-host. Uh, our other co-host is unable to make it because of some things, with the family. However, uh, we do have the Mrs. Tyheese Love, who we're calling upon her tonight as the psychologist, okay? And we know she's a chaplain, she's a mother, a wife, an elder, a deacon, so many titles she wears, a minister, she wears many titles. But tonight we're calling upon her as a psychologist, which is, she's a licensed and psychologist. So tonight on Wake the Nation, our topic is, of course, my name is Florencia Chang-Ageda, for those of you who don't know. Uh, and so tonight's topic is marijuana, mental illness, and violence. You know, Deacon Love, I know that sometimes folks may say, the two or the three do not connect. But I remember years ago, and I'm just going to start with this, that years ago, when I was in high school, a friend of mine, no, we weren't friends actually, he was in another class, but one of my schoolmates who I knew um, went up on top of the roof and wanted to fly. But this, you know, I won't say his name, but we used to call him Cat for a reason, which was also
Mm.
his initials. And he went up on top of the roof and he wanted to fly. Now, he used to smoke marijuana, right? And on this day, and he was a bright young man too. But once he started smoking marijuana, we noticed some differences. And then one day, there he was on top of the roof, trying to fly off the building from the fifth floor. And it wouldn't have been pretty. I thank God that it did not occur. It took a lot of coaxing and everything else. We had to get the authorities involved as well. But finally, they got him down. So for which I'm grateful that we never had to witness that. So, and I know it's popular, and now that marijuana is being legalized, and so there are a lot of people who take, they say medical marijuana, and people have been doing this for a long time. But I want to share with you something that I learned, and then I'm going to call upon our psychologist here. So there is Mid-Hudson Forensic Psychiatric Institute. I'm not sure how many of you know of this. It's one of three places in the state of New York, which we live, that sends criminally mentally ill defendants that have been, by reason of insanity, they are, when they've committed a crime, they were sent there. Now, there are around 300 patients there. They are killers, they're arsonists, and it's been recorded that they have one who's a cannibal. Now, what do they have in common? Most of them they've been diagnosed with psychotic disorders like schizophrenia that have caused them to commit violent acts against family members and strangers, right? And so what did they have in common? All of them, the doctors said, and psychiatrists said, that they all smoked marijuana. You know, just this year, we learned of earlier where several parents have been killed by their adult children out in Long Island and Queens and Brooklyn. It's like it's in the New York area. I'm sure probably, and I hope it doesn't happen elsewhere, but it has. But for what was reported here that have been linked to, drugs or mental maladies, right? So anyway, when I read this article, I said, I was led, and, my co-host, we agree that we need to let the public be informed, especially those with kids, young kids, teenage kids, kids that are going off to college or in college, just to notice subtle changes. We need parents to be alert, okay? In the news just now, there were, I just don't remember the number. This is in Westchester. This just occurred where kids who committed suicide or were on drugs, this is a growing problem right here in Brooklyn. There is a growing opioid problem. Okay, so getting back though to talking about marijuana, marijuana or cannabis, as it's known, either names, is some have said more about making money than helping those who need help. There are politicians that promote legalization as a low-risk way of raising tax revenue, and they figure it will reduce crime. What we do know is that over the past 30 years, psychiatrists and epidemiologists have turned speculation about the danger of smoking marijuana into a science. So they're saying, wait, there's a science, something's connected here. It's not just speculation. There is scientific proof. You see, some people smoke or eat gummies or make brownies with marijuana in it, which Deacon, the psychologist Love, is going to talk to you about. Be careful about those parties you're going to. Especially if you're on medication or you're not, doesn't matter. You could be healthy and whole and never taken a drug in your life. Also, beware. Don't just eat from any and everybody, because a lot of people are doing that now. And so, the marijuana though has THC in it, which is the active ingredient, right? And so this is one of the things that many have said, that it will reduce the pain when you when you're in pain. Now, maybe minor pain, but for major pain, especially those who need opiates, like if they're on like cancer patients or patients with severe pain, it's been proven not to. But hear this, and this is something I want you to know. Rob Campia, who is he is the co-founder of you probably never heard of him, right? But he's the co-founder, Rob Campia. He's a co-founder of Marijuana Policy Project. He acknowledged that they have always viewed medical marijuana laws primarily as a way to protect recreational users. So think about it. Think about it, folks. We're talking, this is Wake the Nation. Wake the Nation is all about alerting the folks. We talk about things that are, trending issues or current issues or events, things that affects, our society and humans on this planet. Okay. So anyway, there was in January 2018, the American Journal of Psychiatry showed that people who use cannabis were almost 3 times as likely to use opiates 3 years later, even after adjusting to other potential risks. Now, listen to this. The thing is that, as I said to you before, that right here in our communities, we do have some of our elected leaders, Councilmember Farah Lewis and others that are right now fighting for what's going on in the Junction in Brooklyn, right? Where there's a growing opioid situation there, as well as homeless members who are out there. Now think about this. They said if you're smoking like 3 years later, okay, so you know how and this is something that I've okay. So we know that the things we do, they may not take effect right away. However, they do take effect sometime later. We know that when we put weight on, we don't just sit and eat a plate of spaghetti and meatball and tomorrow we're 10 pounds heavier. No, but when the donuts and the chicken and the spaghetti and the breads, and we eat this and we eat an abundance of it, because we can still have the foods we love, right? But when we eat an abundance of it over time, we do put on weight. So that's the point. When we do anything, you know, in time, we see the result. We want to lose weight, we take time. We drop the breads or drop some of the breads or eat bread once a day, or, you know, whatever we have to do, and we do our exercise or get our rest. And in time, we see that slow decline. And sometimes we're in a society where it's a microwave society. We want things instantaneously in an instant. The microwave isn't fast enough for us even then. However, getting back to what this the medical journal said, marijuana can cause, now I'm quoting from it, can cause or worsen severe mental illness, especially psychoses, right? And they said, now this is why I want you to pay attention to your teenager. They says teenagers who smoke marijuana regularly are about 3 times as likely to develop schizophrenia, which is the most devastating psychotic disorder, according to the American Journal of Psychiatry. Now, after exhaustive review, the National Academy of Medicine found that cannabis use is likely to increase the risk of developing schizophrenia and other psychoses. And the higher the use, the greater the risk. Also, that regular cannabis use is likely to increase the risk of developing social anxiety disorder. And we know that many folks have developed social anxiety disorder on their own, because especially if you live in New York, I mean, you think about those folks who were in the subway that day when they, and especially the folks who were locked in a car. It can happen. I pray it doesn't, but it can happen. You know, PTSD or other, you know, so there are issues that can lead to anxieties other than that. So hearing this, do you remember those patients in Mid-Hudson? They are criminals, criminally insane. I didn't call them that. That's why they were placed there. They were smokers of marijuana. We tend to think that it is okay, you know, just like, you know, certain things that we know shouldn't be taken in abundance, or, you know, but we're not telling you what to do. We're just giving you information so that you can be aware, so that you can make that conscious and informed decision for yourself, right? If you want your life to be enhanced, if you want to live a better life, and for your children, especially the children. I'm concerned about our children. I'm really concerned. Our next topic to come will be about, you know, children committing suicide. And because I'm not sure how many of you are aware that in 2020, over 500 children ages 9 through 14 took their lives, and 6,000 15 to 24-year-olds. And let's not even, the numbers hasn't even been in totally, is what I've read and was told when I asked on 2021. So Let's beware. Now, cannabis users today are also consuming a drug, and especially if you smoke marijuana, be aware. So listen, we're here for everyone, right? So if you smoke it, be aware that you're consuming a drug that is far more potent than ever before. Why? The measured amount of THC, the delta 9 tetrahydrocannabinol, right,
Very
is
nice.
increased. Okay. Yeah.
Very
So
nice.
so the chemical in cannabis that is responsible for its psychoactive effects that it contains is higher. Now listen, not only is it higher, here you need to know this as well. It contains 20 to 25% more THC, right? Now, how did they do this? By cloning. So basically, you're getting synthetic, right? So be careful, be careful, be careful. And so you have to know that this is producing a stronger high more quickly. And you have to think about, think about this, and you can talk to your doctor about it or research it, but talk to your medical doctor, because you think about the when your bodies when you put your bodies in extreme situations. Yeah, if it's cold, you develop hypothermia, and you can lose your fingers and your toes, you know, heat stroke, dehydration, extreme conditions. Your body you're getting a stronger high more quickly, means that you're going to fall more quickly. So that being said, I'm going to ask our psychologist from Wake the Nation here, what are some of the truths that you have seen regarding those who smoke marijuana and its tie to mental illness and violence?
Well, thanks again for having me on, and thank you for that.
By the way, you look beautiful. Love your colors.
Thank you, and so do you. Um,
Yeah, thank
but
you.
thank you for that very informative backdrop, because a lot of people, they do take marijuana usage very, very lightly. It's an introductory drug. Many people, even, they smoke it, and they introduce smoking it to their children, because they feel that, oh, it's harmless. It's a herb, and it grows naturally and all of that, and they think, oh, there's no harm in it. There's no harm in it. But as you stated before, the marijuana that grows wild, in the fields and everything, um, is different from that which people are smoking. The marijuana that from back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
that used to grow, out in the backyard, or, in rural areas and things of that nature, that is a different marijuana than the marijuana that you get today. The marijuana that you're getting today, it has been genetically modified. As you stated earlier, it has been GMO'd, okay? Where, yes, it has been um, grafted and cloned to increase the amount of THC in it, which is the element in it that causes people to feel high or get high off of it. And so they taking the natural marijuana, and marijuana comes in many different varieties now, because of the genetic modifications that have happened over the years. So you can get marijuana in different flavors, for lack of a better term. There's a marijuana sour. There's different names.
Really?
Yes, yes. You
Okay.
can get it in different flavors. And so, and each variety of marijuana, it has a certain amount of the THC, as you mentioned, definitely, but it's also been altered in the way that it smells or it tastes, as you ingest it, be it by smoking or eating it. Um, and so, so you're not getting the pure marijuana even. You're getting genetically altered marijuana that has been also um, mixed with other uh, elements and other ingredients to enhance um, the get high factor of it. Okay, so even with the medical marijuana, that too has been genetically altered, so that you still get the THC in it, and it's supposed to be used for um, alleviating pain, and um, calming nerve issues and things of that manner. But with medical marijuana use, that is supposed to be prescribed to you. And so the doctor knows how much to give you, uh, which would be enough to deal with whatever your medical issue is that is causing you pain, or or uh, whatever your medical issue is that the doctor is treating you with the medical marijuana. Um, it, but many people even abuse and overuse even the medical marijuana, and that's where a lot of problems is happening. Um, but the marijuana from back in the day, even the marijuana that was around growing, when you and I were, little girls, that is not what is out now. That is not. You you can rarely find all natural, non-genetically modified marijuana these
So,
days.
may I ask a quick
Sure.
question? So is the thing that smells like a skunk, is that like a genetically modified marijuana? Because I haven't smelled marijuana that smelled real till I went to Jamaica last July. Like seriously. But yeah,
That
just
that
to,
that skunk smell, that is not even the marijuana. That is
oh.
tobacco leaf that has been treated
Oh.
in such a way that they call it, uh, I forgot what they call that tobacco leaf, but the kids call it now. But that tobacco leaf has been dipped in certain chemicals, and saturated, and then cut up real, Fonto, the kids call it.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and it's been chopped up and it's mixed in
Oh,
with
okay.
the marijuana. So when you
Okay.
go and you purchase the marijuana, and then you go and you get the Fonto leaf. It's that's not marijuana. That's
Oh,
tobacco. And
Okay.
it's tobacco that's been dipped and saturated in some other chemicals that you crush that up and put that in with your marijuana, because it's supposed to enhance the
Mm.
get high effect. It's
Okay.
supposed to help you get high quicker off of the
Okay.
marijuana.
Oh.
That Fonto leaf um, is uh, it's toxic by itself. It's
Mm.
tobacco leaf that's been soaked in different chemicals that once it's lit, it it makes you feel, the high quicker,
Mm.
and it's supposed to extend the high after you smoke the marijuana. And
Okay.
so, and that Fonto leaf is very dirty. It
Mm.
has it has toxins in it that can cause breathing problems because when you're
Mm.
smoking it, that chemical that's on that Fonto leaf goes right to your lungs,
Oh, wow.
goes right to your lungs,
Wow.
straight, to your lungs, and it sticks to your lungs. It has it has carcinogens in it. A lot of
Wow.
people don't know that. They don't think about it. They think, oh, well, it's a leaf, right? And a leaf,
No,
that's good
no,
for you.
no,
Yes, it's a
no,
leaf
no.
that's been saturated in
Yeah.
chemicals, okay? And so, and it smells, just to give you an idea of how much toxins and chemicals uh, that that leaf was saturated in. It stinks. And it also was in, there's fertilizer, manure,
Ooh.
fertilizer.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And that that leaf has been treated in, and also that's what helps that leaf to grow, that tobacco leaf. They have certain fertilizer, manure fertilizer, and that's right on the leaf. And so, and the chemicals that the leaf is saturated in, is saturated, the leaf is left in this chemical compound and soaked in that. And then the leaf is dried so that, by the time you get it, the only thing you gotta do is crush it up, and it, you can sprinkle it in with your marijuana, and it does all of that. And so that's the skunk smell that you're smelling,
Okay.
is that. Um, for
So,
those of you who are indulging in with the marijuana and you use that Fonto leaf, um, you might want to try washing that leaf, rinsing it at least, so that that will cut down some of the toxins and the dirt and the manure that you are inhaling once you smoke it. Okay, that will cut down some. But yeah,
so,
that's what the skunk smell is about.
was thank you for informing us of that. Now, have you noticed there to be a coalition between, the violence, the marijuana, and the mental illness? Like when one smokes that, has there been?
Yeah. For one thing, um, ever since the pandemic hit, um, there's been an increase in stress, pain, illness, sadness. And so what people do in order to try to cope with these increases is that they turn to self-medicating. I don't know if you remember when we had the shutdown here in New York and we had to shelter in place. All the stores closed, businesses shut down with under lock and key. And the only businesses or stores that were allowed to open and remain open were like supermarkets, so you can get
The
food.
liquor store.
The liquor stores. The liquor stores were considered
Essential.
an
Essential.
essential um, uh, entity that had to
Yeah.
remain open. And I don't know if you recall, but they even extended the hours of the liquor stores because they felt that people needed to be able to have some kind of vice or relief and to cope with the effects of the immediate shutdown. And so, yeah, liquor stores made plenty money. People who had stopped drinking started back drinking all over again. People who never drank before started drinking alcohol as a way to cope with the situation of being locked down.
And so we understand that that happens, you know. However, something that I've noticed, like I remembered growing up when I was going to high school, like the kids, like I said, who smoked marijuana, those who did, or the men. It wasn't always kids. It wasn't the kids that were in high school so much as, you know, older people, you know, that were smoking it, but they tended to be more mellow as opposed to today. Like usually when I pass the smells that I smell that is affiliated with that here in this country. Usually, sometimes there are fights. There are, just the other day, I had to, you know, reach out for some assistance for some folks, and they were high and they were volatile. They were very angry and high. Like
Agitated, yes.
usually before the marijuana that I knew of, when people smoked, they ate a lot and they chilled out and go to sleep.
Yes.
You know, not so today. It's like majority of the times, if you pass a corner or, you know, wherever there is, you smell that. So
Yes.
that is, you know, and as the article stated, of the 300 patients, which one is a cannibal, I was like, oh my goodness, that are in Mid-Hudson, they're all smokers and they're killers and arsonists. So, you know, it does.
Because of the changes,
The modifications.
the modifications in the marijuana itself, it's different. People are acting different. And back then, when you were a little girl and you know the marijuana usage, when they smoked the marijuana, that's all they smoked. That was it. Like, you know, and you had back in the day, even when I was a little girl, you know, back in the day, you smoked you know, a joint and you relaxed. It relaxed you. You went to sleep. You were very calm, or you were happy. Okay. You know, you had, you know, I have relatives that, you know, smoked it and they would just sit in the corner and laugh. You know, they were happy. That's why they took it. You know, the effects of, you know, being under the influence of marijuana, pure marijuana, not genetically modified and not laced. It has a calming effect. It has a numbing effect. it will make you laugh and giggle,
Mhm.
and then you go to sleep. Um, that was back then, and that was the marijuana back then. The marijuana that is around today is genetically modified, and it's laced. You're not getting 100% pure marijuana. You're not even getting 100% pure genetically modified marijuana. The marijuana that people are smoking now is is cut, is laced with other stuff. So you know, that's why I was talking about the different flavors. You know, they have, it's treated, the marijuana leaves and everything have been grown, genetically modified, grown, and then they're treated and different ways so that the even the way it makes you high is different. The experience is different. Okay. And then along with the marijuana, whatever flavor you got, people are now putting opioids, mixing opioids in with the marijuana. So
So that's dangerous.
yes,
That will
and
blow your heart out.
oh yeah, and it also will make you lose your mind. It alters your your brain. Now,
Mm.
marijuana by itself, um, it naturally alters your brain and your activity and everything by itself. And then with this genetically modified marijuana that we're dealing with today, with the higher levels of THC in it, THC is a drug that drastically alters your brain activity and your mind, as
Yeah.
I'm going to go into in a little bit. But so the marijuana, the genetically manipulated, modified marijuana by itself already is going to, alter your mind. And then you're smoking that uh, laced with other things. Uh, Marijuana is being laced with Xanax and different
They were doing
opioids
fentanyl too.
and
So yeah.
fentanyl. Yes,
And
that's mixed in.
which is something that they said Michael K died from, the actor, and
Yes,
a few other people have died from that. Because
yes. Prince died from that.
yeah, well, I'll
Um,
tell you, no, Prince died from fentanyl, but Michael K they
yes.
said died from the I think the
Oh,
drug was laced. It was
oh, his
it was
marijuana was.
laced with
Wow.
fentanyl. Yeah, it was
Wow.
different, but
Yeah, yeah.
fentanyl in itself is very dangerous, and we
It's
know that. And
dangerous.
so to combine the drugs. So
Exactly.
question, what should parents look out for in order to know if their kids are smoking marijuana, and what advice would you give to the parents if
Okay.
they realize that their kids are indeed smoking marijuana? Because we need parents to be aware.
Okay. Um, and I'm glad that you asked that question. First of all, parents need to know that marijuana is not a harmless drug, especially the marijuana of today. They need to get that myth out of their minds. And so if the parents are recreational users of the marijuana, um, they need to understand that they need to stop so that their children uh, would not, engage in that. A lot of times it's the parents or the family that introduce the children to
Oh,
uh,
wow. I
smoking
wasn't aware of
marijuana.
that.
Yes, yes. Um, Studies show that the average child is introduced to marijuana uh, in high school by the time they are 15 years old, sophomore year. Okay. Someone at school uh, will, be smoking it and say, here, you want to try? And on the average, a child will try it, or at least be offered to try it by the time they're 15 years old.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And so
So if
many,
the parents are doing it, then they're likely to
they're
to
more likely to, yes.
experiment. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Especially, because people think, oh, well, it's harmless, hey, it's just it's a nerve, make you happy, and families smoke together and stuff like that, and so because they think it's harmless totally, and that it's okay, you know uh the children are more likely to experiment with it and try it. In fact, they might think, oh, well, this is something that I'm supposed to be doing. I saw mom do it, I saw dad do it, I saw grandma do it, I saw cousin do it, I see uncle do it. You understand? And the child doesn't understand that, okay, well, maybe uncle got some issues going on and he's self-medicating. They don't look at it that way. Same thing with the alcohol. People self-medicate with alcohol. And now that New York State has legalized recreational marijuana usage, um, it's even more readily available, and more kids are engaging and indulging in it. Now, uh, because it's legalized, yeah, you walk down the street, right there on the street, all out in the open, somebody's smoking the marijuana. You smell it. They walk past you, you get a contact high because it's so strong. The scent is so strong. On the train, people get on the train and right after smoking a joint, and you didn't smoke it, but you get high just because you got on the train and sat next to you. You know, you catch a contact. You
No,
know,
no.
and,
You say this so like I was in a place of business. I won't say which one because it's a popular one. It's a well-known one. And a couple of their employees.
yeah,
I was just like, and then the one, and I won't say what sex either. Let
right,
me just, but one was kind of getting upset, which brings me back to the point that it's not, the people aren't being calm, because I
right,
don't know what was making that one upset. The other one was like, hey, chill out, because they realized that if an altercation or if something blew up, then they would have both been exposed. But
right.
so it's that thing. But as you were speaking, it brings me to something else, and also I thank you for letting us know that that some kids is because they're parents, but I also want you to let parents who don't smoke so
Right.
that they can know when they see
Okay.
their kids. So
Sure.
if you can give that, but
Okay.
also keep in mind too, the because it's been legalized, then the gummies, the cookies, people will
The
have that tendency,
edibles,
that the things that kids love to
candy.
eat is
Yes.
what I'm getting at.
Yes. Right. You bring up an excellent point. Because it's been legalized, you can get marijuana in different forms. So, because it's legalized, you can get and go to a store, and buy edible marijuana. You can get it at some grocery stores. Um, you can get marijuana candy. There's candies, sucking candy that has marijuana in it, and you can go to the store and you can order it and buy it, over the counter, no big deal, and start popping them in your mouth. I knew of what last summer last summer, I knew of 3 people who were given edible candy marijuana. And the candy was so potent that they wound up in the hospital because they lost consciousness. And see, that's the thing. Because marijuana is legal in this state, you're allowed to have a certain amount. You're allowed to indulge in a certain amount, and it's legal. But in a lot of these edible forms of marijuana, it's not regulated by the FDA.
That's what I was going to.
Marijuana is in a piece of candy. Okay, so you might have the legal. You might.
Excuse me. Repeat that.
Okay, I said with the edible forms of marijuana, those are not regulated by the FDA. So the piece of candy piece of candy, candy edible marijuana edible could have 3 times, 4 times the legal amount that you can carry. It might have in it, one piece of candy might have 3, 4 times over the amount that's legal for you to carry. Okay, and you are eating that one piece of candy, and you have had that one piece of candy could have the amount of 12 joints in that one piece of candy, and you eating it, you don't know how much marijuana is in that piece of candy. The only thing you know is it's edible marijuana. You don't know how much is in there, and so you can easily
you can OD, can't you? Because you don't know how much you're ingesting. And the other thing is candy. I think, we have to be really responsible with this, because think about it. A lot of mothers carry gummy bears in their purse. There are gummy vitamins for your kids. But the thing that we know is you take one, only one. But with gummy bear, the candy, kids can eat a whole pack. So I'm concerned about folks with kids. If you have this in your pocketbook and your kid goes in there and takes it out and starts eating, so what do parents look for to say, you know what, let me get my child to the hospital?
Okay, well, if you, and not only children, but even adults.
True.
When you can take in and overload your body with marijuana. You can do it. Now, studies show that it's very rare for someone to die from an overdose of marijuana. It's very, very rare.
Well, thank God for that.
For someone to die from, overdosing on marijuana, straight marijuana, okay? Very rare. But the marijuana that's out here is not straight, pure marijuana. That's the issue, number one. Number two, you don't know how much marijuana is in the edible that you're eating. So you can eat a brownie. They have edible marijuana brownies, and people go and buy, you might buy 1 or 2 or what have you. They range in different prices depending on how potent you want your brownie. So if you want to be totally knocked out high after eating 1, then you pay a certain price. If you want to eat 2 or 3 and then, you're high, that's a different price. But again, those edible forms of marijuana are not regulated by the FTC. So you don't know how much is in there. And you can order a brownie that might, like be full of marijuana, more marijuana than brownie, and you eating it, and you ate it, and then you get another one, you have already, overloaded your body with marijuana, and your body will shut down. Signs of overusage of marijuana. This is not overdose. This is overuse, meaning that you using it too much, you taking too much, you smoking it too much, you eating it too much. Signs are an increased heart rate. You can have a stroke. Your heart rate will pick up really, really fast, and you can have a stroke from overusing too much marijuana at one time. Okay. You can lose consciousness. Okay. That's what I was talking about. I knew of 3 people last summer that had 1 piece of marijuana candy, and they fell out unconscious and had to go to the hospital. I know 3 people that happened to. So yes, you can lose consciousness. 3, when you overindulge with marijuana. Number 1, marijuana temporarily shuts down your short-term memory. Temporarily shuts it down.
Really?
Yeah. Smoking 1 joint, that's how it alters your brain. It prevents your brain from being able to recall memories temporarily. So it shuts down your short-term memory, so you can't remember stuff. That's why when people are high, they have, you could see sometimes they're having trouble remembering stuff. They don't know what your name is. They don't even remember what they were talking about, because marijuana temporarily shuts down your short-term memory, number 1. Number 2, marijuana temporarily blocks your brain from being able to receive and pick up new information. So when you're high, you can't learn. It shuts down that area of the brain that receives and processes new information. So parents, if you notice in your children, they haven't, all of a sudden, your child was a great student in school, passed all their classes, did their homework, was alert and everything in school. And then all of a sudden that child went from, doing great in school to their grades plummeted. They started failing, they cut in class. They're not handing in their homework assignments. That's a red flag. That drastic change in their schoolwork and their grades, red flag. Okay, because chances are your child has started smoking or smoked or got a hold of some marijuana, and that marijuana temporarily shut down their short-term memory, so they can't remember stuff. You gave them chores. They supposed to do their chores before going to bed, and they all of a sudden they're not doing their chores. You remind them, oh yeah, Ma, okay, I'm gonna get to it. And they still don't do it. They're having trouble remembering because their short-term memory has been shut down, grossly affected by the marijuana. And then so if they're in school, whatever the teacher is teaching them, their brain is not able to pick up that new information. So they have difficulty doing their homework. They have difficulty doing their classwork. Marijuana also because it shuts down your ability to receive new information, it also affects your thinking ability and your concentration. Someone who is indulging in marijuana, they have serious problems paying attention and they can't concentrate. The brain is all over the place. So while the child is in school, they might have smoked a joint at lunchtime, and then they're back in class. You know, those afternoon classes, the child not learning anything, the child just sitting there in the classroom. They can't comprehend nothing that the teacher's saying because their brain has been shut down. They can't pick up new information. They can't remember what they learned the day before in class. You know, they can't concentrate because it makes it difficult for them to focus and concentrate. They experience what's called brain fog, where they're kind of just like in la la land. Even though they're sitting there in the classroom, you know, the teacher's like, yeah, you know, Johnny came to class today. Yeah. He didn't seem like he was paying attention. He can't, because he can't focus. Marijuana prevents them from being able to focus. And so that's why all of a sudden you see the drastic drop in their grades. That's why you see, okay, homework assignments are not being handed in. They can't do the homework assignment, or they forgot about the homework assignment and they keep forgetting. So parents look at that. Look at, you know, if you notice the grades drop, you know, the teachers is calling you, telling you your child is not having issues with focusing in class. No class participation. Another thing a marijuana overusage does is it makes you sleepy. So, you know, and very relaxed and lackadaisical. So you might notice your child, you know, they used to love going and playing football after school. You know, they were on the football team, and all of a sudden, child is no longer interested in football. They were on the team and everything. Oh no, Ma, I don't want to do that anymore.
So,
you know,
so
and they come
question.
home and they just mope or they stay to themselves. That's a red flag, especially if your child was very sociable before that. If your child was very quiet, you know, quiet child, didn't have a whole lot of friends, and all of a sudden they got people calling the house all day long. Another drastic switch the other way. That's a red flag. Parents also make note if your child has changed the group of friends that they're hanging with.
Oh yeah,
You know, they might have been friends with your neighbor, and you know your neighbor's kid, and you know the people at church, or you know where you know the child's friend and you know their parents. You know, all of a sudden your child is not close with them friends anymore. They are closer with a new set of friends. You don't even know those friends. Red flag, red flag. You know, they change the people that they hang out with to people that they get high with. Okay, so that's a red flag. So parents, look at your child's behavior. If you see mood swings,
that's what I
marijuana,
was gonna ask about.
yes, marijuana causes mood swings. When you're high, you're happy, you're feeling good, you know, everything's wonderful. Once you come down off of that high though, that's when the other behavior comes in. Your brain craves that marijuana, and it wants more. So as you are coming down off of that high, your brain is already, you know, motivating you to go get some more marijuana because you want to get high. You want to stay high. You don't want to come down. And as the person or child is coming down off that high, all of a sudden you get that aggressive behavior, that angriness, the irritability. They're agitated, and the slightest little thing ticks them off. And they're barking at you and stuff like that. That's because they're coming down off of the high of the marijuana. And the marijuana is more than likely laced with other stuff that will bring out aggressive behavior. And so as as the marijuana, the high of that wears off, then the side effects of whatever the marijuana was laced with will kick in. And that's where you see that aggressive behavior and all of that. And that's the child or the person's brain trying to motivate them to go get the next high. And they have to get it, they have to get it, they have to get it. And they get frustrated and angry at the fact that, oh my goodness, I'm coming down off of that last high and I gotta hurry up and get some more, and they may not have money, they may not, have the ability to get that next joint right away. So then they become angry about it. And the child might come to the parent, I need some more money. I need my allowance. I need a nap, and, really, come at the parent aggressively so that the parent will hurry up and give them some more money so they can go out and get some more weed so that they can be high again. Weed is very, very addictive. Marijuana is very, very addictive. And so once people start taking it and they start to smoke it on the regular, they need it. The more that they smoke it, the more that they need to smoke it. And so they don't like to be for too many hours without it. Otherwise, yes, that other behavior starts to show. And you start to see that aggression or that, irritability, you start to see that. So parents, if you notice that your child is going through mood swings like that, and the mood swings, you can't miss it. They're sharp, they're drastic. 1 minute, the child is happy, calm, quiet. Next thing you know, the child is upset, angry, arguing at you, argumentative, and so, yeah, that's a red flag. So if you see the mood swing, this drastic switch like that, yeah, chances are your child is on something, taking, marijuana. And the more sharp the mood swing is, when you start to see that aggression, chances are your child is smoking laced marijuana, is laced with something, okay? Because that's where that aggression comes in at. Also, if you notice that your child is fearful, they normally they can go to school by themselves and they're comfortable, they're calm. And all of a sudden now they want somebody to come with them to school, or they're looking over their shoulder, they're afraid that someone is going to harm them for no reason. That's paranoia. And paranoia is a side effect of over marijuana usage. They become paranoid. If you start seeing that paranoia like that, you need to take your child somewhere so that they can get detoxed, because they're already hooked on it. They're addicted at that point when you start seeing that. And you're gonna have to find, get your child some help, because these are definite signs of marijuana addiction. Not just, oh, well, and the child, even if you ask the child and you talk to the child say, oh yeah, I use it recreationally. Nobody uses marijuana recreationally. What does recreationally mean? It means, oh, well, I smoke it every once in a while, not every day. But that's a lie. Anybody that uses marijuana on a regular basis, it is not once in a while. It's, on the regular, at least, 2-3 times a week, maybe every day, maybe twice a day. But it's on a regular. It's not once in a blue moon. Okay. So, if you parents, you talk to your children and you ask them and they say, oh, well, I use it recreationally. No, especially if you're seeing those signs. It's more than once in a blue moon. Okay. Marijuana also causes erectile dysfunction. Okay, so kids and adults.
That's one for the books.
Yes, it causes erectile dysfunction.
Wow.
Yeah. So
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They don't tell you about that, and so that's part of the reason for you see a lot of young men in their 30s looking for Viagra. That's part of the reason, because they're experiencing erectile dysfunction at a young age because they were overindulging with drugs from a young age. So, yeah, parents, those are things to look out for in your children, in your family even, so that if you see any of those things, mood swings, drastic drop in your child's school performance and grades, if you see changes in their friends, the group of friends that they hang out with, changes in their activities, things that they used to love and do, they no longer are interested in it, and they're interested in something totally different or not interested in anything at all. That's another thing that marijuana does. It makes you just tune out from everything. You notice your child that used to be very, very active, in the school play and, on different social events. All of a sudden, the only thing they want to do is come home and stay in their room. Maybe play video game. Not much activity at all. That's a red flag. That's a red flag. Possible marijuana use, overuse, okay? Because marijuana shuts down your brain, and so it makes it difficult for you to pick up new information, makes it difficult for you to remember stuff. And so rather than try, the child just, okay, I'm gonna just chill out. I'm just go in my room, play my video game. That's it, for hours and hours and hours. So those are things to look out for. If you see those things, go and have your child evaluated, and go and find some place where your child can go and get detoxed. Now, if your child is 18 and older, it's very difficult for you to go and have your child detox if they are not willing to do so. Because at 18, they're an adult and they're able to say whether they want to do that or not. And so if they don't want to detox, then you can't make them. And so you just have to, try to convince them to, want to detox, but can't make them. So, wow. But yeah, that's what I have.
Thank you so much, Psychologist Tyheese Love. She's wearing that hat tonight, and we certainly thank her for this information. And we brought this to you so that you can be aware. And even as I stated earlier, before, if you use marijuana yourself and you're using it not just recreationally, but you use it on a daily basis, you know, the science is there,
Yeah.
where folks, you know, transition later on, and it talks about those who need opioids. There was also a report, a study was done. Yes, I just remember this. There was a study done of people that were on marijuana smokers, and they had pain, and they were studied, and it said that their pain got worse. Like later on, the more they increased the so they increased the use of the marijuana because basically the pain was getting greater. And so it was like the two just kept increasing. The pain increased, the usage, and you know, and the
That their
dosage.
bodies built up a tolerance of the
Right.
marijuana
Yeah.
so that it didn't help the pain.
Right. So there you go. The bodies would build up a tolerance for that. But as I said today, the title is Marijuana, Mental Illness, and Violence. So, you know, if you see your children being moody or getting more violent, you know, or not doing their work or just checking out, you know, find out, you know, take them to the doctor, let them be, you never know. And because we're living in such a society that today there are kids that find it fun, they may know that that's not they may, and you know, even with jealousies, you know, you have kids that are jealous of other kids. Unfortunately, it's so, and parents need to correct that. But if it's not, you know, you have to teach your kids and train your kids, because to be aware, to be on the lookout. You know, my grandmother used to tell me, don't eat from folks, because you know, you just don't know, right? And you know, today you have people who are giving, and this was, as you were talking about the brownies, it is one thing if you want to eat the brownie yourself, but it's
Yes.
another thing if you go to a dinner party or you go to a party and they have things that are laced, the drinks is laced, the food is laced, the
Right.
cookies, the brownies are laced, the cake is laced, you know, or their candies, sometimes there are candies there that it could be a marijuana candy. You could OD if you're not aware. And there sometimes folks do things, and I find this you know, that folks sometimes get more callous, right?
Yeah.
And so they do things for just to get a rise out of, right? So sometimes there are people, and be careful of who your friends are, who you hang out with, who you
Right.
socialize with, because there are folks who will put things in your food and you don't know, and watch you eat it to see how you, what happens to you. You know,
Exactly.
we've all seen, I'm not on TikTok and those others, but I've seen posts that have been on the various platforms where folks will see their friends, quote unquote, I have to say that, because if you watch a friend that's hurt, or watch a friend who's ODing, or you give a friend some gummies and here, eat some more, or pills or some mollies or whatever, you know, whatever it is,
Yeah.
okay, and then you take a video of them going through what they're going through, instead of rushing your friend to calling 911, you're videotaping and then posting it.
Yeah.
And so this is the world we're living in. And so this is why we have to be cognizant of what's going on. We have to be aware. And as I let out with the article stating that these the criminals that were in the Mid-Hudson Hospital Psychiatric Institute, they were there because they committed violent crimes. And the one thing the psychiatrist and the doctor said, they all smoked marijuana, all of them, all of them. And
Yeah.
one patient was a cannibal. It just goes to show you. So I know that marijuana is being legalized in New York and New Jersey, and everybody is like, yip, yip, hooray. But you have to remember that anything that alters the way your brain think, your brain function, alters the way you process your thoughts, that can alter the way you drive, the way you think. People are so short-tempered nowadays. And I've noticed this, and the other day, as I stated, I had to get someone to break up what was going to be potentially a fight.
Yeah.
And they were smoking. The parties were smoking. So there was none of them there to say, hey, no, they were just riling each other up and just keep going at it. And it was the situation that either someone would hurt, someone would end up in the hospital, someone would be in jail. But thank goodness I just happened to be in the area on the scene, and there was someone that I knew that was just right on the same block. And they happened to intervened and somehow got them to disperse. But there is a
Another,
correlation. Oh, go ahead. You have something to
another
say?
thing that's happening now, a lot of uh, young parents, they are they are indulging in marijuana use. They have small children that they have to care for, toddlers that they have to care for. And when you have a small child, an infant, a toddler, you really have to be on point and watch the child, because the child can't do much to protect themselves. And if you're a parent that's indulging in marijuana use, uh, again, it alters the functioning of your brain. It slows down your reflexes. So if you are a parent of a toddler and the toddler's running around in the house, and you're up on the top floor or something with that toddler and there's steps, that the toddler can fall down, you're somewhere high, off of marijuana, you can't possibly get to that toddler to stop them from running and falling down a whole flight of stairs, because your reflexes are slowed,
Or falling out a window,
right, or falling out of a
or
window.
hurting
So yes,
themselves,
yes, there is an
just,
increase in child injury and toddler injury, because a lot of the parents are under the influence of marijuana and they're not able to, prevent the child from injuring himself. They're not even aware, and so if you're a parent and you're um, overindulging in marijuana, you place your child in great harm, great danger, because of your uh, overindulgence. And then um, that child seeing you, engaged in marijuana usage, when that child gets a little bit older, they're going to want to do the same thing. They won't see any harm in it. They won't see, they'll go, well, when mom gets upset or, stressed out, she goes and smokes a joint. So when I'm feeling stressed out, I'm going to go and smoke me a joint,
yeah. And
and so,
you know and and,
yeah,
and 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 I agree with you on that. I taught in the public school system for 10 years, a little over 10 years. And one of the things that I noticed when I taught the little ones, they would say, my auntie does this. Let me tell you something, parents, listen carefully. Your children do see what you're doing, and they live what they
yes,
learn.
yes, they
Right?
know,
They learn what they live.
they
Um,
know,
they
right?
see, they know. You may think they don't. I can't begin to tell you. And the things my kids would say to me, and even at church, in my church where I attend church, and when I our programs with our kids, the things that they would report, listen, you know, you just many times you just have to in
Yeah.
the church pray with them, and you know, in the school just pray for them, right?
Right.
And so they do see things, they see what you're doing, and they're more likely to accept it. If we expect our kids to become one way, we can't tell them something and live another way. They're simply
Exactly.
going to do what we live, what they see us
Yes.
live. We can tell them all we want, but they're going to do what they see us do. So, and that psychologist Love today brought out that children whose parents engage or smoke marijuana or more likely to do that. And they probably will do it at an earlier age because we know that kids do things much earlier than the generation before them.
Yeah.
This is just a part of our DNA or life. I don't know which, but it is what happens. And so the science is there. It's there, folks. There's no denying it. We see it. And so the legalization of it will probably cause not most of our young Black men not to go to jail for something that, you know, they could have gotten an opportunity to straighten out their lives for. However, at the same time, we have to be careful because if there are, as the psychologist told us about, the brownies, the cookies, the candies that kids can get a hold of, and not just kids can have an overusage of this. So if you feel your pulse racing after eating candy from someone or gummies or brownies, or if you feel lightheaded, or if you feel faint or anything in that area, or you just feel sluggish or slow, lethargic, maybe you need to dial 911, you know, and I'll close on this note. I remember there was a video that totally, I have to say, sorry, just one quick second. Let me just, sorry. Yeah. Uh, there was someone made a 911 call. They had smoked, they had eaten some marijuana brownies, right? And eaten the whole batch, the entire
Wow.
batch. And whatever had happened, and there is that video out there, I don't know. At the time, it had made, I'm not gonna lie, I laughed. I really had a good laugh. And then I laughed and said, wait a minute. The reason why I laughed was the person dialed 911 and they said, um, they told the operator that they were dying. And then they said they were dead, but they were still talking. It was
Wow.
just, you
They
know,
didn't know. Right. Exactly.
they had no clue as to what was really going on with them. And, you know, like I said, when I first saw the video, but after I went to show my husband the video, and then I was like, wait a minute, you know, and that could have gone so much differently. Like
Yeah.
the psychologist says, no one has died from overusage,
Overdose.
oh,
Yeah. Overdose.
but but you can have an adverse reaction if you're taking the cookies or the candies because
Yeah.
it is more potent. And as it said, the THC levels is about 20 to 25% in the genetically modified form of it, and with the gummies and the, you know, whatever it is. So be
More right.
careful what you're eating, where you're eating, and remember also, and this was one of the reasons why I brought this up, that the American Journal of Psychiatry said that teenagers who smoke marijuana are more likely to develop schizophrenia, which is the most devastating psychotic disorder. And
Yeah.
after you've brought your child in your womb for 9 months, knowing that your life was at stake to bring that child into the world, you don't want to know that marijuana does something to affect your child's future. So with that being said, I'm just asking that you pay attention to your children, talk to your children. Don't let videos and video games and television and everything else take place of that family time.
Yes.
We have to spend family time. We have to talk to family. Too many people, too many children. It was just in the news just a few minutes before we came on, more kids taking their lives, more kids losing their lives, overdosing on drugs, started out on marijuana. Parents are grieving, families are grieving. You know, one person was there, and she was in tears because she said she's a recovering addict, and it's still a struggle for her. And so, but seeing so many lives, so many people that lost their lives in such a short space of time, really made her want to stick around. But pay attention to your loved ones, it doesn't matter what their ages are, because everybody needs love. Everybody needs to know that they're wanted, that they are, a part of. And I think that's one of the things that also drive folks to, you know, indulge in, the recreational, whatever it is that one does, whether it's alcohol or drugs. So with that being said, I pray that all your families are safe, your children are safe, and please pay attention. Go back over the video, please share it. I'm going to upload to YouTube. On YouTube, I am Flo Chang-Ageda, and uh, our psychologist, Tyheese Love, her YouTube page and her Facebook page is Dunamis Sound Mind, which you'll also have the video on there. And if you know anyone who needs help, reach out and try to help. Share this video. Please share the video. If they don't have Facebook, then once it's uploaded to YouTube, please share. My name is Flo Chang-Ageda, FlochanG, same, as on
Yes.
on Facebook. And as I said, Mrs. Tyheese Love will be on the Dunamis, Dunamis, Sound Mind Services. She is a psychologist. She does help. You can reach out to her.
Yes.
Her telephone number is 718. Can you give your number again?
576-8110. That's
Repeat.
718-576-8110.
718-576-8110. And I'll put it in the chat afterwards, so you can reach out to her. Listen, there's no shame to the game. I believe that we should all get help when we need help. When we know we need help, please do not suffer silently. There will be someone that you can reach out to. So there's her number that you can reach out to. And as I said, please tune in next month. We'll have a few other folks on the panel alongside with us. We're going to talk about, the folks that are taking their lives via suicide. The loss of lives via suicide. So we'll have counselors on there along with Mrs. Tyheese Love. And, we're just here to know that you're loved, you're cared for. And as a Christian, I have to say, and a minister, I have to say that the psalmist David did go through a time when folks thought he was insane, and he cried out to the Lord, and in his distress, the Lord heard him and delivered him from all his fears. So no matter what you're going through, whether you have a mental malady or, you're struggling with depression, anxiety, or, you have an addiction to something that is not helping your life, there is hope, there is help, there are numbers, and I will put those in the chat that you can reach out to get help. You're not alone, and you're loved. Have a good evening, everyone, and a
Thanks,
wonderful
everyone.
week. I pray your week is not as stressful this week. Okay? Thank you all for listening. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for caring by sharing. Have a good night. Thank
Good night.
you. Thank
Thank
you,
you. Good night.
psychologists. Love. Thank you for the and men, young men, remember, it leads to erectile dysfunction. You want to have families, right? Okay. Stay away from it.
Yes.
All righty. Have a good night, everyone.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Take care. Thanks.
All
Good
right.
night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.